Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa, and my music name is New Lily. If you're new to my channel, please check out my How I Became a Targeted Individual summary and or full story. And the links to both of those videos will be in the description box as well as in the comment section. This is not going to be a long video, guys. As I mentioned in my important update video, my newer videos are not really going to be about targeted individual content matter, at least not as much. I might every now and then do a video talking about maybe an update or documentation, but for the most part, I'm trying to steer away from that content and focus on more positive things. So like interests, hobbies, like I said, updates on what's going on with me. I'm trying to get back into programming, giving y'all updates on that. But I did want to just very briefly mention something, kind of piggyback off of something that I've talked about in my prior videos. And what I'm referring to is my reactive abuse PTSD trauma video. Just kind of playing off of some of the things that I talked about in that video. Because I'm not going to lie, I am sitting here kind of feeling perturbed about some of the things that happens to me in this program. Like I said, I'm not going to say too much. I'm really trying to stay clear of the targeted individual, I guess you could say, propaganda. But I do want to talk about this, so just part of the struggle for me with this program is being watched or surveilled 24/7, that's one of the things that happens to targets. If you're a target, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Or you might be a target that doesn't know this, because I do know that there are some targets, especially newer targets, that are aware of the fact that they feel like they're being watched, like even in their homes, but they're not sure. So I don't want to give too much details on that. Do your research on this program and what happens to targets. But all I'm going to say is I'm aware of the fact that I'm being watched 24/7. These are some of the things I talked about in some of the videos I deleted. So for me, just knowing that has been a struggle for me because I'm an anxious person. If you listen to my full story, I think even in my summary, I talked about it. I talked about that time in my early 20s when I was giving, I guess you could say, the backdrop story on my spiritual battle that started in my early 20s. And I was talking about when I lived in Tallahassee and I stayed with my older sister and my roommate. Shortly after moving out from the roommate, remember I told you guys a lot of crazy things started happening in my life. Part of that battle, I guess you could say, was my journey with anxiety. I've always been somewhat of an anxious person, even in my early 20s. Actually, even had acid reflux. And I know I remember back then in high school that causing anxiety because I used to feel like something was going on and, harassing my mom. Even back then, my mom used to have to drive me to the hospital in high school. So anxiety has been something I've struggled with for years. And also, too, apparently acid reflux is a symptom of Asperger's as well. So it's like I have all the symptoms. But anyways, so just talking about Asperger's, and what I talked about in my 2 Asperger videos, it's a neurological disorder. So not only does it cause anxiety, but it also just affects how your body reacts neurologically. Your brain is wired differently when you have Asperger's. And so for me, when I had that confirmation, or I found out that I have Asperger's, it all made sense to me. My anxiety throughout the years, even in high school, like I said, my mom used to have to take me to the hospital because I was such an anxious person. I used to be having OCD and acid reflux and thinking something was wrong and come to find out it's just gas, And then even in college, like I said, with my sister, in those times it got worse. And I believe it was due to the marijuana that I was smoking back then. There's something called psychosis, marijuana-induced psychosis, and also marijuana-induced anxiety. This is why in my prior videos, you'll hear me say that although I do view marijuana as medicinal, I'm not one of those people that necessarily support the recreational use of it. Although I grew up around people that use it recreationally and I have no problem with anyone that uses it that way, the only reason I don't promote it is because I know that there are some people like myself that might have an adverse reaction to it. That's all I'm saying. You never know if you're that one person that has a brain that's wired differently. You might have like an adverse reaction, So that's the only reason I don't promote using it recreationally, because I know there's plenty of people that use it and it helps them, not just medicinally, but I mean, even just ease of mind or whatever. It does the opposite. It relieves stress. But people with Asperger's, you can look this up. This is a symptom. Typically, things that are supposed to work one way for someone might work differently for somebody that has Asperger's, especially when it comes to medication and things of that nature. And yes, I do view marijuana as medication. So that's, that's something that I think worsened my anxiety in those times. But I remember my hands used to be cramping in, and they thought I had some sort of neurological disorder. And then they really said it was just really bad anxiety. I never really went and got like a professional, I guess you could say, what am I looking for? Examination about what was happening to me. It was just constantly like urgent cares, So I got that type of treatment. Not to say the treatment wasn't good, but of course they're not doing a thorough analysis of what's going on with you. So they basically just, asked me questions and told me that it was anxiety. And the fact that I was breathing so fast, basically they were saying I was losing oxygen too quickly. And so they said that's what was causing my hands to cramp in, but really now that I know that I have Asperger's, and I know that that's a neurological disorder, it now makes sense to me why that was happening. It's all tying in and making sense. That kind of way where you find out something about yourself and it all starts to make sense? That's what's going on right now. But anyway, so I'm going off on a tangent and I really want to rein it back into what I was supposed to be talking about. So with that being the case, and knowing that I'm being watched 24/7, I almost said on what? I'm not trying to give too much details. I don't want any problems. Do your research. Just know targets are surveilled 24/7 externally as well as internally, via neuromonitoring. But just knowing that has been a real struggle for me, especially when they're constantly presenting you with stimuli. Everything's hacked, when you're a target. I'm sure those of you in this community know what I'm talking about. Your phone is hacked. Everything that you watch is hacked. It doesn't matter what you're watching, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, it doesn't matter what you go on. Everything is hacked, and they're constantly sending stimuli. They literally target you through the different apps or things on your phone that you utilize. So even YouTube, for example, they'll put videos in your recommended pertaining to your targeting, containing stimuli pertaining to your targeting. So, I learned that. This is why I talked about that in my story. I learned about the fact that they target you through the TV. And in that video, I actually deleted it. Those of you that are subscribed, I'm sure you might have seen those videos. They're no longer up. Those are a part of the videos that I chose to delete. But I shared in my first documentation of targeting through the TV video, I shared a clip from Truth Hurts Hypocrisy America's page, another target, where he was showing how they do this. They have the technology to target you through the TV. And this is what was happening to me, what has been happening to me. And so it typically can cause like this reaction from me that makes me like start to breathe funny, or get really anxious. It's this weird thing that happens where I'll start to breathe funny, or, my face will get this funny look. And they love to try and weaponize that against me and say that it's guilt. And it's almost idiocracy. I don't want to sound like that because they already say that I'm not a humble person or whatever it is, but it's really just that I'm frustrated and I'm reacting with that frustration. But to me, it's idiocracy to use that as an indicator or to say that that's indicative of guilt, because if you're an anxious person and you're being constantly bombarded with stimuli and false allegations and insinuations, you have thousands of people watching you and doing noise campaigns and covertly harassing you and staring at you for a reaction. Of course, you're going to be anxious and you might have a breathe funny moment, right? So anyways, for me, I was grateful because it just happened just now. So basically in my prior videos, before I created those two last videos where I provided evidence, this is why I do what I do. If you'll notice throughout my videos where I'm talking about things that's happening to me, you'll notice that I make sure to provide evidence and I explain very clearly what's going on. The reason I'm doing that is because I have to literally, what's the word I'm looking for? It seems like I have to validate myself in this program because you know how it is. This program is like a smear campaign type of program. So it's made to villainize the target. Eric Snowden talked about this. Like it's made to villainize you. It's made to make you feel accused. It's made to persecute you about everything you do. So basically, it's almost like you're always feeling like you have to explain yourself. And that in and of itself can cause PTSD, constantly being called a liar, constantly having those type of insinuations, that can cause PTSD and always feeling like you're on the fence and having to defend yourself. That in and of itself can cause PTSD. But anyways, I remember that being a big deal for me when I tried to relocate off of this island because again, at that time I didn't even know I was a target. I didn't even know what the heck a targeted individual was. So when I tried to relocate and my targeting went viral and all these different things happened, I was in my car being stalked ruthlessly by a bunch of people on the road. And I was aware of the fact I hadn't really learned about the technology just yet. But I knew I was being watched on camera because of what was happening around me. So I remember this was before, again, I knew I was a target. So I definitely didn't know that they had the technology to target you through the TV. And I remember they kept sending me stimuli pertaining to my targeting, and the Rev campaign would be going crazy in the back. And I would be having that funny moment where I'm breathing funny and getting the anxious look on my face. And of course, they would go more crazy when that was happening, and trying to play it like it's guilt or indicative of guilt. Again, which I say is idiocracy. Because anybody going through that type of situation, even if you're not an anxious person, that's sitting there being villainized and having all these freaking people like demons in cars around you, speeding around, harassing you, throwing shit on your roof, and villainizing you and vilifying you for something you didn't do, of course you're going to be anxious. First, what happens is angst, and then the next thing that comes is anger. I'm just telling you what happened to me. And then after that comes the fight, and you start fighting and starting to prove yourself. And so that's where I'm at right now, providing evidence. Thank the Most High I learned the program. I'm no longer getting angry. Instead, what I do is document and I provide evidence to support what I'm saying. But anyways, I just had that moment just now because in my prior videos, they were really making noise campaign anytime I would say the Asperger's thing because it hasn't been professionally diagnosed. I self-diagnosed myself. The ADD was professionally diagnosed. The Asperger's was not, but I knew I had it. It was as clear as day to me. But they still were constantly doing noise campaigns in the background when I would talk about it. So that's why I sat there for those 2 hours and I created those 2 videos where I provided clear evidence to show that I have Asperger's. So just now when I was listening to my video, I was listening back to, I think, one of my Asperger videos. Or no, it wasn't that. Which video was it? It was one of my recent videos where I was talking about the Asperger's. When the part about Asperger's was mentioned, they didn't even do the noise campaign. And I think it's because I now proved that I have the thing. But I still had that reaction. I still had that breathe funny reaction that happens to me because I'm so used to them doing noise campaigns when that's mentioned. And I was like, thank the Most High. This is the first time I was actually happy that that thing happened to me, I was like, thank the Most High, let me make a video about it. Because that's clear. Obviously, I'm not lying about that. I made it very clear that I have Asperger's. I proved that I have Asperger's. And so it's just like, that's clear evidence that the awkward reaction that I have is not indicative of lying or being a compulsive liar. That's just idiocracy to say, And I also, too, I think I've proven throughout my videos that I'm not a liar. As a matter of fact, the irony of it all, and I keep saying this, is that my honesty is what keeps getting me into trouble. I literally keep putting my foot in my mouth, and it's to the point where the noise campaigns and the gang stalkers keep sending me low-key warnings about these videos, which is why I'm totally laying off now. I get it now. I'm laying off. This whole thing is bigger than me, this program. And as much as I might want to have that vigilante, altruistic, I've got to save all the targets attitude, everyone I realize in this world is out for themselves, So it's like, what am I doing that for? I need to try and survive and maintain my life. That's what I need to do. Sorry, not trying to sound negative, but it's just like coming to certain realizations. You got to not be stupid in this world. And also, too, it's like I don't even want to ruffle feathers. I already obviously am in a bad spot with the government, obviously, and I haven't even committed a crime. But still just like kind of being like a whistleblower, you could say, in some of those videos that I had posted that I deleted. I was sharing a lot of controversial stuff. And so I deleted it. I don't want no problems. But I'm just saying I wanted to talk about that, the PTSD and trauma that comes along with this program. I wanted to talk about that because that's one of the main things that they've weaponized against me, and tried to use it as something that was indicative of guilt when that's not the case. It's indicative of anxiety and PTSD. So anyways, thank you for listening. I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Peace out.